What's going on, guys? Over the last few years, I've been sleeping in a hammock between trees. This time I decided to give the ground a shot in a tent. Will I switch? Was it worth it? I don't know. Let's take a look. So real quickly, before I get into the experience I had last night with sleeping in a tent, I wanted to give a quick background on why I switched to the hammock. A few years ago, I went on a hike with some people and I mentioned that I wanted to try out hammock camping. They told me, "You're gonna hate it. You're gonna switch back to tents in no time." Well, I actually fell in love with it. I actually really enjoy sleeping in a hammock. I feel like I get a better night's sleep, and I feel like I don't know, I just kind of like the fun of setting up a hammock. So you might be asking, well, why the heck would you be switching to a tent? Why did you use a tent on this trip? And the reason is because my son and I are going to be doing a long backpacking trip where I'm trying to minimize pack weight. So I calculated out the weight of our hammock setup and the weight of taking a tent, and there was some weight savings in taking a tent for two people and both of us sleeping in the tent. And so I decided to give it a shot to see if it's something I would like after so many years, and so I did it. So here's my experience. So first off, let's talk about the setup. The setup was relatively straightforward. I've used this tent once before and I enjoyed it. It's been a few years and that was the last time I actually used this tent. There are some other key points that I wanted to point out, for me anyways, that I felt like are, huge decision makers on sleeping in a tent versus sleeping in a hammock. And the very first one I would say is sleep. I sleep really well in a hammock. I'm super comfortable. I don't toss and turn all night long. My hip doesn't get sore. However, last night when I slept in this tent, my hip was sore. I was tossing and turning. I was sliding. I was on a slight incline. I couldn't find a really flat spot of land right here where I chose to camp. And I looked around all over the place and there wasn't really a better spot. So I chose the best spot and I kept sliding down. And in a hammock, you don't experience that. You're hanging between two trees and you just kind of, oh, dang mosquitoes. You just kind of like hang there. And so that was one thing I didn't like, sliding down to the foot end of my tent every single time. And just all night long, we needed to recorrect that. I felt like I finally got some decent sleep in the tent once I kind of got settled in and figured out, okay, this is just going to be how it is. I'm going to be slid down here. So I just stopped correcting it. I stopped fixing it. And I realized there wasn't a whole lot of condensation on the inside of the tent last night. So I just dealt with it. So that was not terrible, but I still didn't sleep nearly as well as I do in a hammock. Now, as far as sharing a space with somebody, a tent is obviously going to be a better option because you can get in there. If it's crappy weather outside, you can play games, you can do whatever. In a hammock, it's more modular. You're usually sleeping alone. Yes, you can get different hammocks that will hold two people, or you can get bigger nets and that kind of thing. But for the most part, it's a modular, singular person system. And so that's kind of something that I like about a tent, is that you do have the option of flexibility of, sleeping in there if you're with your kids or whatever, then that's super nice. One other part of my experience with sleeping in a tent for the first time after so many years is the fact that I felt like it was a little chaotic inside the tent. Now, don't get me wrong, I get if you are experienced with sleeping in a tent, you probably have your system down. However, this is the first time I've slept in a tent for a while and I felt like, woohoo, I've got all this space, I can just, boom, just explode. And I didn't really like that. It was kind of chaotic inside my tent. In my hammock, I have to stay dialed in. I know exactly what I'm taking into my hammock with me that I will need at night, and I know exactly what's gonna stay in my backpack. So I know I have everything's organized in my backpack, everything's organized in my hammock, and honestly, I wake up when I'm ready to break camp. It's so simple. I just put the things that I had in my hammock with me, pack up my hammock, and I'm set. So that was something that was new to me. If I end up sleeping in a tent more often, then I will need to definitely get a system down. The next thing I experienced was getting in and out of the tent. It's totally different than getting in and out of a hammock. You're standing there when you get in the hammock and you get out and you're already standing. Trying to get in and out of a tent, you're down on your knees, you're trying to get your shoes off, trying to not take crap in the tent with you, you know, dirt and sticks and other stuff. And so, yeah, for me, that was different. And now maybe it's because I'm a bigger dude right now, and other people who are more flexible and can do that, maybe it's much easier. But for me, it was not as enjoyable getting in and out of the tent. And to be honest, I like getting in and out of the hammock way better. So did I experience anything that was kind of unexpected after so many years of sleeping in a hammock and not in a tent? I don't know if I had necessarily had any real surprises or unexpected things, but I really had forgotten that I really like being able to just have my gear out of my backpack. Now, I did mention already it being organized. If it's organized, that's one thing. Complete chaos is a different ball game. I would say probably the biggest one is picking a prime campsite for your tent, so you avoid your pad slipping around, moving down, and interrupting your sleep. Something that I missed from sleeping in a hammock last night was the fact that I just slept well. So will I sleep in a tent again? Yeah, of course. I mean, depending on the area I'm in, if there are no trees, which a lot of areas in Utah, if you go to like rocky areas like Moab or other places, maybe places don't allow a hammock. And so, yeah, definitely I would sleep in a tent again. I think the majority of the time I'm gonna stick with a hammock and continue to sleep in my hammock. I just have gotten used to it. I love it. And that's just something that I think is my personal preference. I think everyone needs to find their thing, find their personal preference and go for it. But don't be closed to, you know, sleeping in a hammock or sleeping in a tent. I think that's the most important takeaway. Once we become closed-minded to things, we stop experiencing. And that's something that I always want to be doing, and that's what the backcountry brings to me. Experiences of just trying new things, doing new things. I make this hammock chair from time to time because it's something I enjoy doing, and it's just like that experience. If you don't get out there and have an experience, it's just gonna be, yeah, the scenery might change, but I think getting out there and just being open to different things is key in having a healthy experience in the backcountry. So I guess the question is for you guys, have you slept in a hammock before? Or is your go-to a tent? Let me know in the comments. That would be awesome to hear how many people use hammocks, if you've switched over from one to another, what your experience has been. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already. It really helps the channel grow, and stay safe out there. We'll catch you on the next one.